Jock, welcome, sir. How are you?
Doing great. I was really glad to get your message. I mean, it was really quick. You said I found your information on, I guess, on YouTube, right?
Yes, on YouTube. And I'm really, really excited that you accepted it because I've I begin this like journey. We will introduce what we are going to be talking about now in a second, but truly true. I don't know if you know in Graham Hancock, his series on Netflix, and I was so amused about like the history they have teaching us, the geology, everything, like even physics, and the other way to look at things from like the thing with archaeology too and different like material stuff it like you can learn history through real objects, so it was really interesting to see those things. And yeah, of course we are now eventually sitting down talking. Why don't you introduce a bit of what you have been studying these couple years?
It's so cool that you say it in this really plain way, like everyone can understand what you're talking about. You say we can learn history through real objects. We can go out onto the terrain or into the terrain in a riverbed or a creek bed, and we can look at it and learn. And the idea that academia has all the answers for us, and instead of going onto the terrain to explore our world, we have to go into a classroom to read textbooks and listen to a guy lecture to us. I don't think that's right. I think we don't need some expert to tell us what we can see with our own eyes. So I went to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex in 2011 as a volunteer for 3 months, and that was a lot of fun. And when I was there, I didn't just sort of help as a volunteer. I also made videos on the side, and I would had this little sort of, it wasn't really a consumer video camera or a professional video camera. It was in between, like a prosumer, they call it, video camera in between. It was pretty good. So the quality is a little bit fuzzy, but that was back in the day when video cameras were just starting to be a thing. When you were just a kid, probably out 2011. I don't know how old you are. How old are you, Samuel?
I'm 22.
Yeah, so 2011, you were 8.
Yeah, probably around
Yeah.
that.
So, I mean, when you were 8, video cameras were sort of like a new thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm doing the prosumer video camera, thinking I got a great camera and it's okay, but I made these interviews with uh, Archaeological Park Foundation employees. That's Archaeological Park is the nonprofit NGO that oversees excavation in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. So I'm
Yeah.
working. I'm working as a volunteer, taking videos of the employees who are shoveling out material and from Robney Tunnel and excavating the pyramids. And I'm also interviewing the scientists and the other volunteers and the tourists. So 4 categories of people, and just pump in YouTube with these interviews, because back then in 2011 nobody knew about the Bosnian pyramids. I mean, it's still kind of under wraps. You hardly ever hear about it because academia is trying to crush it. They're totally silent on this issue. In the beginning they attacked it, but after a few years they just gave up because they couldn't crush the project. They wanted to stop the project, and they sued uh, Semir to try to stop him because they said that he was in his excavation of the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, he was destroying artifacts that were there from, you know Neolithic times or whatever. And it's like they have no evidence of that whatsoever. They just made that up. And so they lost that lawsuit, and Semir kept going. Yes. So anyway, I was making videos for them, and then so Semir asked me back to make more videos with a professional video camera in 2014. And I was like, oh my God, because he liked those videos. And he's like, hey, this guy just did it for free. Why don't I, give him a salary? And he can bring a professional video camera, laptop, and get some real scientific videos. He wanted to make short 2.5-minute scientific videos about all the features of the complex, and just have those as science on the internet. And I was like, okay, I'll definitely do that. So I went there, and so that's the beginning of my journey. that was my training ground. So I just want to make it clear that everything that I'm going to say in this talk that we're going to have is based on what I learned in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex.
That's so nice. So you like began not in the books but in the dirt. That's so nice because usually like the academic way is 90% just in the classroom, reading, lecturing by someone that will hopefully have been there themselves, but a lot of times they haven't. So this is such a good ground to begin on. That you tell me that you have been. Can you explain for the people that doesn't know the Bosnian pyramids, how that works, what it is?
Right. Well, now a lot of people have a lot of different things to say about the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. Academia will tell you that it doesn't exist. They say, well, Wikipedia says it's just a bunch of hills.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, my answer to that is if it's just a bunch of hills, natural hills, what did I do for 23 months there? Because I was there for 23 months total. 3 months as volunteer, then I came back for, let's see, 19 months, and then I came back for 4 months. Is that adding up to 23? Anyway, I kept returning, and I spent so much time photographing every inch of that complex, making videos with scientists who came to visit the complex. I put together a Wikipedia page that was all of the scientific papers that had been delivered by scientists who came to visit the complex, did research on the ground, boots on the ground, looking at the terrain, digging up stuff, doing energy, really sophisticated energetic readings there, finding a scalar beam there at the top of the pyramid of the sun, all this stuff, a 22 kilohertz beam that was also a scalar beam. That's Goran Marjanović's work. So much sophisticated science there. And there's been there had been at that time when I was writing the articles for Wikipedia, there had been 5 scientific conferences of scientists from all over the world who would come to Visoko, which is in the heart of the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, or sometimes they'd go to Sarajevo, which is just a little bit south of there, and have the conference. And they would deliver their papers. So I listed in the Wikipedia article all the papers in all the different languages, because some of the titles, it was delivered in Italian or Bosnian or English, So I got it all done, and I had to learn Wikipedia coding, and that was really hard for me because I'm not one of those guys that can do that. And so after 3 months, I had this article that would take like 2 weeks to really read it with all the hyperlinks and everything, because it was hyperlinked to every single paper that had been delivered. It was like more than 80 papers. And so by real scientists, they weren't just kooks, they weren't just tourists, they were scientists. And I sent this to Wikipedia, and they immediately denied it. It was like 10 minutes, and they denied it. And I was like, why did you deny this article? And they go, well, because in our files we have Bosnian pyramids listed as a hoax. So anything to do with the Bosnian pyramids, they just deny it. Bam, it's done. And it's like, yeah, but who listed it as a hoax? I'd like his name.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him that, but because they're not going to give me the name.
And the
So
reason also, not only the
uh,
name, but the reasons why they
yeah,
see.
well, and the reason is that academia, see, because academia and Wikipedia are basically one thing. So academia says there are no pyramids in Bosnia. Wikipedia says, oh, academia is telling us there are no pyramids in Bosnia. And then academia goes, Wikipedia is telling us that there are no pyramids in Bosnia. So it's like an echo chamber of nonsense. We can't change the Wikipedia page. If you've ever tried to change a page on Wikipedia to give it some more information, if they don't want you to change it, you cannot change it no matter what you give them. No matter what science, no matter how credibly, if they don't like this subject, they will just keep it that way. So nobody can change. We've been trying to change because they don't even have a page for the Bosnian pyramids on Wikipedia. It's just called Bosnian Pyramid Claims. So it's already saying it's a hoax just in the title of the Wikipedia page, So, so we have an academia that worked really hard to suppress this, and you're like, why did they do that? So I'm in the complex trying to pump out these videos, right? Working as a professional videographer, even though I'm a writer, I'm not even a videographer, but I'm a guy with a really good camera. And so I'm working every day as a videographer, making videos with scientists, interviewing tourists, and having Semir in the video. He's going on explorations in the tunnel. So I'll follow him into some new water channel that they opened up in Rodney Tunnel, which is a prehistoric tunnel in the complex. And it was exciting, really exciting stuff, new stuff, frontier archaeology. Just and academia is like, no, we're not gonna promote that. We're gonna put a lid on it. You will never hear anything about the Bosnian pyramids, so nobody knows about them. Still, I talk to people and they go, Bosnian pyramids, what? So back then, I was pumping YouTube with these videos that I was making, short scientific videos, and it was my job to wake up the world. It wasn't just my job to make the videos, it was my job to promote the videos and make sure that people knew about these damn videos so that people wouldn't see with their own eyes the terrain. So this is what you're talking about. You're saying it's cool that we have a way to look at real objects in the world to learn things instead of taking the other route and going to academia and hearing about somebody who may or may not have been on the terrain themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Would you say maybe this experience you have there would be like a particular moment on discovery that set everything else later in motion? What is like,
The reason that I kept going, and by the way, you mentioned Graham Hancock.
yeah,
The reason that I fell in love deeply with ancient history was because I read two books by Graham Hancock. One of them, the first book I read, I was just walking down the sidewalk in Ventura, California one day because I lived in Ojai and I just went down to the beach town of Ventura and I was just walking around. This is cool. You know, I'm by the beach, tourists, and it's all fun and little cute shops. And I see a bunch of books on the sidewalk just stacked there. And people are walking by the books. And I'm like, maybe I could have one of these books. I don't know. They don't seem to be owned by anyone. It's like a little library, public library of like 20 books on the sidewalk, just
yeah,
stacked up there, you know? So I found this book, Fingerprints of the Gods. I don't know if you've read that, and you know, maybe you have read that
I
in
heard
Spain.
about it, but I haven't like sat down and read it yet. But I
Okay,
have
and
to.
then I liked that one so much that I got his other book, his next book, Underworld,
Mm.
which is he talks for 60 pages about ice in the beginning, and you're like, how could anyone talk about ice for 60 pages? What would you say about ice? And it's unbelievable. These two books were so important to me. And so yeah, Graham Hancock is amazing. And so now back to your question, after getting inspired by Graham to go to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, I mean, he didn't say, Jock, go to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. He's just a guy whose books I read. And I was like, wow, we don't really know much about ancient history at all. And then I saw this Facebook post in 2011 about the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. And I was like, I'm going. I want to dig. I want to find out what's going on back in the past. I want to help. And so, and there's a volunteer program through Archaeological Park Foundation, which has had thousands of people come from all over the world, from 5 continents. I don't think there's anybody from Antarctica, but you know, Australia and you know, Africa, and just so many people are coming. So it's a fun thing to do. You go for 2 weeks and you help dig. Anyway, so I was excited to go because I had this love for ancient history that was already in me, just like most people do. We're like, I wonder what happened in the past. How did we get here? Most people have this. Most people love rocks. They're like, oh, look at this beautiful agate. Look at this beautiful crystal. We already have an affinity for the earth. We already want to know how we got here. Everybody is kind of like, wait, what? We're so different from the animals. How did we come to be humans that are like this? And so, with all of that as a background, you know, that inspired me to go, and then it inspired me to go back and keep going back and keep. And I was so full of energy; it was just like insane. You know, I was younger and had a lot more energy, but you can already still see that I'm pumped up. I'm 66. I'm pumped up about the fucking Bosnian pyramids still. And it's been like 14 years, that I found out about them. So to answer your question, I got him to the riverbed. This was month 17. It took me 17 months of being there to ask a question. Here's the question: where is the foundation of the pyramids? Do they start in the town of Visoko? Because what happens is you have the Pyramid of the Sun, which is the tallest documented pyramid on the planet, even though academia will tell you it's just a hill. And the east side of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun goes straight into the Fojnica River, Fojnica, and they pronounce it Fojnica in Bosnia. So if you look at a topographical map, you see that it goes straight into the river. But if you don't do that, you just think, oh, it probably starts because Visoko here's the river, here's the pyramid east side, and Visoko is kind of like down here next to the river, this town, and it's kind of flattish. And then, so you think, oh, the foundation's probably somewhere before the town, and then there's the river. So nobody ever asked that question, as far as I can tell. And I was like, I wonder where the foundation is. I wonder if the riverbed is the foundation. Because even though when you're in Visoko, you can't see this straight line into the riverbed, when you step back and look at a topographical map, it's obvious. So I was like, topography is telling me that the riverbed is the foundation. And if it is the foundation, it's going to be built the same way that the pyramid is, So I went into the riverbed that day, August 5, 2015, I think it was. I made lots of videos, took lots of photos, so it's all documented. And I told Semir, probably the next day, we went to make a video about something else, and I said, hey, the riverbed's built. I just found out that it's the riverbed and the riverbanks are built in the same way that the pyramids are. It's the foundation. And there's not just of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, but then the Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon, boom, right on the other side. Osiela Hill, right on the other side. Pyramid of Love, right on the other side. So there's 4 huge structures, and the river is the foundation for all of them. So they're all tied together through the river. So it's like this mega structure, and the water coming down and possibly flooding cannot get under the pyramids because the pyramids are not set on the earth. They're joined to the next pyramid over here. So the water's going over your pyramid complex instead of taking your pyramids out from the side in a flooding event, So it's absolutely genius engineering. It's genius. Water cannot take down your pyramids because it's all one structure. And I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. I wonder where the riverbed ends. In other words, I wonder where they stopped building it and it's back to being a natural riverbed again. So I followed it out. I went upstream of the Fojnica River, and I was like, a couple miles. No, it's still built. And then I took a taxi out a few more miles. No, it's still built. And then I went in a van with some friends, and I went to the primary tributary. There's 12 tributaries. And the primary one's called the Dragaca River. So the Dragaca River comes in, it's going east, then it flows south, then it goes north, and it goes north through the complex as the Fojnica. But so it joins, it's going east and it joins the Fojnica. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go west on the Dragaca, and I'm gonna find a place that's really far away from the Bosnian Pyramid Complex and see if this is built too, the primary tributary. And it was still built. And I was like, uh-oh, if they built the primary tributary, they probably built the other 11 smaller tributaries. And I know that the main riverbed was built as the foundation for the pyramids, which means that all of the hills along all 12 tributaries were also built. Because if you're building a foundation for something, whether it's pyramids or hills, I mean, whatever's alongside of it is going to be built too. And I found evidence of that too. And it's all documented. It's endlessly documented because I just took my camera everywhere. So I documented that. I told Semir, he goes, it would be a lot of work. So I love Semir. He was not prepared to hear that the riverbeds were built. He thought that was too much work. And I was thinking, well, it's more work to build a pyramid, set it on the earth, have a flood take it out, and have to build the pyramid again. If you join the pyramids through the riverbed, boom, you've got a structure that will last forever.
Yeah, because you don't have like a natural thing that can destroy it because it's built. Because that's the other thing, it's built. That's the crazy part. But it's built in a way that it can't be destructed, as you say. So this is very interesting. What's your thoughts the first moment you'd start like connecting the dots here? What's like, where's your mind when like the first thing you begin thinking about?
Well, Samuel, I'm a playwright. So I was like, why am I the guy who is going to investigate the Dragica River to find out if it's built like the Fornica is? Shouldn't there be an archaeologist or a geologist doing this? If it's a geologist exploring this idea, the geologist would have to come to the conclusion that he's actually doing archaeology. Because if he finds that the Dragica tributary to the Fornica River is built, and if he finds that the Fornica is built, then he's actually studying an ancient artifact, and artifacts come under archaeology. If it's an archaeologist, the archaeologist would have to first be convinced that this geological feature, this tributary and this river, are actually artificial features, artifacts, for him to even investigate it. So neither of them are going to investigate it in the proper way. The only reason I did was because I'd been there for 17 months and I was like, where the fuck is the foundation of these these massive structures? Because they're so huge, you can't even really see the features of them, the specific features. It's really hard to find a corner of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. I know that sounds weird. You'd like, why couldn't you find a corner? Well, there's all this vegetation over it. They're built out of clay, and the clay is very fertile. And so there's all these trees, and the Bosnian government actually planted a bunch of trees on the pyramid to try to hide it as a. They didn't want people to think of it as a pyramid, I think, but it still looks like a pyramid if you get far enough back. So anyway, now the other thing is, Samuel, this is terminology that your audience might not be familiar with, and so I'm going to explain it in some detail. I believe, and like I said, other people have different views of this. Even Semir has a different view of this. So he can have his view. That's fine. He's the one who discovered them. Great. I'm all for him. I'm 100% in support of Semir Osmanagic, okay? So I want to make that clear. He's awesome. I'm probably his biggest fan, okay? Now, I believe that the pyramids are a late-stage terraforming project. What does that mean? It means that I believe that the continent builders, the people who built the continents, all 6 or all 7, depending on how you number them, were also interested in repairing or making adjuncts to their continental features over time. So 35,000 years ago, they came back and said, we're going to build a clay structure here. It's going to be a landscape feature, just like any other hills and around, It's not going to be pyramids set on the earth like in Egypt or like in Mexico or like in Central America. It's not blocks stacked up and set on the earth. It's going to be structures that may have a pyramidal shape. And the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is a 3-sided structure. Semir says it's a 4-sided structure. Well, it's 3-sided. Anybody can see that with the topographical map. And it's totally fine. I love Semir. I'm not going to get into an argument with Semir. He'll win any argument because he's got this power. I'm not going to do that. But I'm just telling people it's 3-sided and anybody can see that. And that's fine. Whether it's 3-sided or 4-sided, it still acts as a pyramid. So you've got this pyramidal structure, but it's built into the landscape. In other words, it's part of the landscape. That's why no one saw it for thousands of years. They built their castles on, the kings built their castles on the top of it because it had a view of everything, because it was the tallest structure around. So 35,000 years ago, the same people, ETs, came back and they said, we're going to make an adjunct to our continents right here, where these two rivers meet. We're gonna amplify the natural river. I assume there was a natural river there to begin with, and they just built over it. I don't know. Maybe they fully created their own river system. I don't know. I'm assuming they built on top of a natural river system. But then again, what is natural? Because if the continents were built, then the natural river system had also been built. So anyway, so they came back, they built this thing out of clay, and I can show you exactly, if you and I went to Bosnia, I could show you where the clay pyramid complex called the Bosnian Pyramid Complex starts. It starts, you can see it in the riverbed in the Fornica, right at something called Buci Bridge, B-U-C-I. At that bridge, if you go underneath the bridge and into the riverbed, you see there's clay going north, which is downstream, into the pyramid complex, and it's all clay. Everything's clay. South of that, in the riverbed, you see concrete. It's a completely different material, and there's a place where it stops being clay, and you're like, okay, that's where they did this repair job. The continent builders came back, did a repair job. This is prehistory, so there wasn't anybody around writing books about, hey, some weird ETs came back and they're building some pyramids. No one's writing anything. There's just tribes and gathering berries and throwing spears. And if they saw something weird, they would probably just run away. They're not going to record it for history. There's no history of this. And that's why academia is against it. They're like, we've never heard of anybody who could build pyramids 35,000 years ago. They're chucking spears around. So that's what they say. So a late stage continent building, terraforming, I call it, for the forming of the terrain. Other people think of terraforming as nuking ice caps on Mars, which is what Elon wants to do, or changing climate. I think of terraforming as what it says, the forming of the land. So they came back, they formed the land out of clay. How'd they do it? I'm just going to do this really quick, 1 second, and then I'll stop talking. They used alternating hard and soft clay layers in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. Everything is built out of a hard structural layer built on top of a soft clay layer, and they're all clay. So the structural layer is made of baked clay stones set next to each other, right? And that those baked clay stone layers are inclined into the structure. So if you're looking straight at the pyramid's here. Oh, look, there's a pyramid. The clay layers are not horizontal; they're inclined in. So that if there's an earthquake, the layers, the hard structural layers, slide on the soft clay a little bit, and they go toward the center, toward the center, toward the center, toward the center. So it gets stronger in an earthquake. It gets stronger. I mean, if an asteroid hits it, I mean, it's going to be gone. But I mean, in an earthquake, you just get this wedging in of these inclined layers, and they're steeply inclined. They're not just 2 degrees inclined. They're steeply inclined layers. And I've got endless videos about this on my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Bosnian Pyramids with an S. It will not come up unless you type the whole thing. They're shadow banning it. So you got to type the whole thing. Bosnian Pyramids with an S. All the videos are there. It shows the inclined layers, and they're baked artifacts. They're baked clay stones aligned in layers that are inclined in, and they're all packed into soft clay above and below, and in between. Each stone, each artifact, each unique baked clay stone. There was no molds. It wasn't like rectangular blocks. Each one is totally different. There's curves in them. There's texturing on the top. The texturing is so that the soft clay on top would hold it, so that in an earthquake, the texturing on the top of each stone acts as a way to stick it to the layer above, so it's not sliding anywhere. It's just really strong. So it's genius engineering, soft clay alternating with hard clay all the way. And then on the Pyramid of the Sun, they put massive concrete slabs on the very top, super dense, 133 megapascals. the densest concrete ever, except for some specialty concretes that we could make, but way denser than any concrete that we build for bridges or anything like that. It's really, 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 really hard concrete, clay and river stones. The clay was heated up to 500 degrees Celsius. It's like 900 and something degrees Fahrenheit. And each block is so heavy and so huge, way heavier and way bigger than we could move. We could not move any of these slabs, and they just put them on this 44-degree Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun slope angle. And the reason they did that was to press the concrete. To press the weight of these slabs would press the clay down, and under pressure, there's something called the piezoelectric effect, which creates a scalar field. And Serbian electrical engineer Goran Marjanovic talks about this, and so does Ken Rolla, Rohla. He talks about this in a video called Blueprint for Existence. So go find Blueprint for Existence, Bosnian Pyramids. And the scalar field is helping your health, and it could be part of the creation of the scalar beam that comes up and out of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, which is not just a column, but a spiraling shape that is basically repeating ellipsoids. So the reason we know this is because Goran Marjanovic went on top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. He took a drone up, and he flew the drone back and forth over this beam. And he's like, what is the shape of the beam? He found the shape, and it was like this: ellipsoid, ellipsoid, ellipsoid. So it's basically like a DNA double helix going like that. Scalar. The reason it's scalar is because the weight of the concrete is pressing on the clay, and the clay is able to create through its crystalline composition this incredible scalar field for kilometers around. So it's a scalar generator. And so academia doesn't want to talk about scalar energy. Tesla did, though. Tesla talked about scalar energy. He called it non-Hertzian waves. The Russian researchers call it torsion fields. So all of that's poo-pooed by academia. They're like, oh, torsion fields don't exist. Non-Hertzian waves don't exist. Scalar energy doesn't exist. So that's what, if you go to university, you're going to get some bullshit. It just totally negates Nikola Tesla. It negates scalar energy. It negates the Bosnian pyramids. It negates real history in favor of some nonsense they made up.
That's so interesting because I come from there like a few months ago, and I mean, I would see it as we are here, we don't really fully understand everything that surrounds us as they like try to tell us, like everything is organized, everything is like this. Why don't have like this curiosity, this open-mindedness that afterwards like creates these new discoveries? Because if you blinded to something or think something is like this, you're never going to see it as something different. So that's maybe the core principle thing you have to look at things, in my opinion. And this like magnetic field, why do you think it's like so badly like seen by academic? Why is it such a taboo on that? I don't understand it, because it's true what you're saying. I've heard it. The moment something like that gets into the conversation, it's like you're this crazy conspiracy theorist, you know? I mean, it's happened so many times. I mean, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I just would like to adventure myself into that. What's he talking about? What he mean by that? Why do you think it's like such a taboo right now? This kind of
Well, I took a sip of water so that I could get my thoughts together, because this is really complex, actually.
yeah. No, I can imagine.
So let me take one more sip, and I'm going to give you an answer that'll keep you interested, I hope. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, academia discarded the ether Basically, in 1905, Einstein said, I don't need an ether for my equations, special relativity. I don't need that. And so over time, academia just said, no, we're not going to have an ether. That's archaic. You can't see it. So how can they say that an ether exists? They said, well, let's just get rid of it. You can't even see it. Well, we can't see radio waves either. We can't see any of the signals that are broadcasting to make this Zoom call possible. But we know they exist. So anyway, our academia discards the ether for whatever reasons they want to give. That's what happened in the late part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century. Einstein was key in that. Now, later in his life, near the end of his life, he brought the ether back. He said, well, we need a field like the ether. He wasn't quite able to say we need the ether back, but he said we need an ether-like field, but for him it was only a mathematical field. He's like, space-time can curve and a whole bunch of things, but it's just math. Don't worry about it. It's not real. And it's like, well, if it's not real, what the fuck are you talking about? So right now we have in academia, in physics, if you go to the universities, you're going to be told about quantum physics where there's this field out there, but it's not real. It's a mathematical field. And virtual particles are bouncing in and out of it. And the students are going, virtual particles, okay, that's going to be on the test. And it's like, what the fuck? A virtual particle? In other words, one that doesn't exist really. We're just going to talk about it as if it exists, and that's good enough. It's all a mathematical field, and it's all about math, and we haven't observed anything, and we can't explain the universe. We can't explain how planets stay in orbit around the sun with gravity, because gravity is far too weak to do that. We can't explain how galaxies hold together, because gravity is far too weak to do that. But we're just going to say everything's fine. Come pay tuition, and we'll tell you a bunch of bullshit. That's physics right now. That's astrophysics. That's all of physics. That's all of chemistry. And most of biology is total nonsense. Why? Because they got rid of the ether. Now, what is the ether? It's a field of potential. It's not what we would call material yet. It's potential, and the mechanism it uses is scalar. So, like we have legs as a mechanism to get from town to the grocery store, we wouldn't say our legs are us, but our legs are part of us. So scalar energy is part of the ether. So when Goran Marjanovic, the Serbian electrical engineer, is studying the Bosnian Pyramid Complex and finds a scalar beam coming out of the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun that's like 9 meters wide, and four teams independently found this beam, and it's right here, it's there it is. But if you go right here, it's not there. But at the edge, so we got a 9-meter beam coming out of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. It's 22 kilohertz, and so it's an electromagnetic beam, 22 kilohertz, and it's also a scalar beam with the ellipsoidal shape that makes it into this double helix, basically. But it's a volumetric double helix. It's not just two strands that are winding. It's the whole volume, So it's like that, and then like that, and then like that. So scalar energy is key. Whoever built the pyramid complex knew how to create a scalar energy field around the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. They used the perfect materials for that. And Ken Rolla talks about that in the video Blueprint for Existence. He explains exactly why clay is the perfect material to then be compressed by this heavy concrete to create a scalar field. Now, if scalar energy is part of the ether, then we go, oh, they're using the ether. They're engaging the ether. They knew about the ether. The ancients who came back, the continent builders who came back to do a repair job in Visoko and build tall clay structures on top of the existing continents there, they knew about the ether. So they're creating scalar energy devices. We call them pyramids, or hills, or pyramid-shaped hills, whatever you want to call them, landscape features that do this. And they're engaging the ether. So it's all about the ether. Now, if academia has discarded the ether, they can't talk about scalar energy because scalar energy is part of the ether. So that's the answer to your question. They don't want to talk about the ether. They want to talk about a void out there. Light travels through a void. That's what you'll get if you pay tuition to the universities. It's fucking bullshit. Light doesn't travel through a void. All is resonance. Everything is resonance. And the only way that everything can be resonance is because the ether is a resonant field. It allows, it's a non-local in time and non-local in space field. So in other words, when you engage that field, you don't have to worry about going from here to there in time. You don't have to say, well, it's going to take us, take light this 100 years or a million years to go from here to there. No, the ether doesn't need to do that. It's non-local in time. So resonance can be immediate. When there's a photon on the sun emerging from the ether, a photon emerges with light and heat. We can feel that photon. Our face resonates with that photon instantly. It doesn't have to travel through a void or travel through an ether. There's no travel. It just resonates instantly, and it can resonate anywhere. It resonates on my face, it resonates on your face. The same photon is resonating on a leaf in Spain, a leaf in Norway, a leaf in Portugal, a leaf in Brazil. The same photon can resonate billions and billions and trillions, an infinite amount of places. Whatever is resonantly in alignment with that photon, it can resonate with it. So that one photon can do a lot of work. It can give you heat and light. Fantastic. So I get a nice mild sunburn when I go out in Texas to do work with the trees. That's a tree on my property, and for the whole summer I got a mild sunburn. I'm like, awesome. I want the sun. I resonate with the sun. I don't need the sun to travel from the sun to the earth. It resonates instantly through a non-local ether field, non-local in time, non-local in space. It's magic. And so academia says, oh, we don't want magic. It's too cool. We don't want magic in our sciences. We want the light to go, it'll take me 8 minutes to get to the earth, and we're just going to do this. And it's like, well, how's it traveling if there's no medium? Oh, it just travels through a void. It's not a problem. And it's like, everything they say is nonsense. It's at least as nonsensical as talking about the ether. It's at least as weird. So, you make your choice, and to me, the ether is so easy to understand. It explains everything. It explains how planets are made, how suns are made, how we are made, how a tree is made. Everything is made in real time, counterclockwise from the north. Above you, above me, there's a counterclockwise ether vortex that's creating us in real time. It's creating the torus field. So it goes in like this. It's winding in centripetally right now and creating a torus field right now. Without the ether, everything would disappear. If the ether disappeared right now, you would disappear, I would disappear, space would disappear, because space is dimensionality. It's a place for things to be, and the ether creates space in real time. And it does that with scalar energy, scalar oscillations, right? Scalar oscillations. So there's this vibration that's going so much faster than we can imagine. The vibration of scalar nodes in the ether is 10 to the 30th power to 10 to the 40th power, somewhere in there. So 10 to the 30th power is 1 with 30 zeros after it, and 10 to the 40th power is 1 with 40 zeros after it. So it's like, I think it's 10 duodecillion at the top end. So it's a number that no one ever talks about because it's so high. And that's how fast these scalar nodes in the ether are operating, oscillating. So the magic of the universe is phenomenally far beyond our comprehension because of the speed of oscillation. So we live in a slow version of the universe. What we see as motion, like when you see my hands moving, you go, oh, his hand is moving. Yeah, that's one way to think about it. Really what's happening is my hand is reinstantiating through resonance here. It's reinstantiating here, reinstantiating here. It's going, it's pulsing, but it's going so fast, it's pulsing so fast that we just see it as a fluid motion. It's just resonance reinstantiation. And just, I mean, it's magic. It's fantastic. But so this is the beautiful universe that we have, and you'll never learn about it in academia. Cheers.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in some way, I think with this quantum physics, we're like in some way stepping into it. I believe that, I mean, I believe it's really complicated stuff what we're talking about, especially from my end. But in some way, what you're talking about makes sense inside of this new theories through quantum. Because then, as you explained, two things can be connected without being physically near. And that's just a way of revolutionizing what we understand as, yeah, physics or time. And I think that's like a easy introduction to all this that's even in the academia too. Don't you
100%.
think?
100%. They had to bring back a facsimile of the ether. So they brought back this mathematical field where this particle does this here, and it spookily affects this particle on the other side of the universe. And you're like, there's nothing spooky about it if you just bring back the ether. Then it all makes sense because everything's working through resonance. It's not like this particle is magically doing something to this particle to affect it and to make it spin the same way. It's just it's if this particle and this particle are in resonance alignment. If they weren't in resonance alignment, it wouldn't work. So it's about resonance and it's in an ether field that you're going to have resonance. If you don't have a field of potential, then you can't have resonance. If it's just a void out there, there is no resonance. So that's why it's spooky to academia that this particle would affect this particle. It's just a void between them. How are they doing that? Well, it's because there's a fucking ether there.
I think now is a good point, if you allow me, to go through one of the first chapters in your future book, because you talk about this kind of stuff. Why don't we begin with the Big Bang fairy tale, as you put it? What led you to question the standard Big Bang model that everybody's learned from very young age?
Oh, well, it's the same thing that led you to question it the first time you heard about the Big Bang, and the first time that everybody in the world questioned it the first time they heard about it. Because when you're 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or whatever age you are, when you first hear about the Big Bang and someone tells you that everything came from nothing, you go, get the fuck out of here. You're crazy, man. Yeah, everything came from nothing. What, you mean everything? What about space? There was space though, right? Space was already around and then something exploded into space. No, we're saying that space came along with everything. There was no space. There was just a virtual point from which everything came. And you're like, fuck off, is pretty much what everyone's first reaction is.
Mm.
And it's a perfectly reasonable reaction to fucking nonsense. So when 1,000 professors in 10,000 or 100,000 news articles talk about the Big Bang, eventually, as the years go by, everybody just goes, well, I guess there's a Big Bang. Everyone's talking about it. They went to Harvard. They went to Yale. They're talking about the Big Bang. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Big Bang. Michio Kaku, Big Bang. Brian Cox, Big Bang. They're all talking about the Big Bang. They never explain it. We got Michio Kaku talking about two kinds of nothing to explain the Big Bang, because he's like, well, he was probably thinking, I'm speculating here. I'm just speculating about why he would do that. He's thinking, well, we can't really have everything in the universe come from nothing, so we got to redefine what nothing means. So this poor guy has to redefine what nothing means so that he can have an entire universe come out of it. It's fucking nonsense on the face of it. Now, we have many books. Let's see. I have a bunch of them right here. This is The Big Bang Never Happened by Eric Lerner. I got a bunch of books that go on and on about how that these are outside of academia. They weren't. These people are not allowed in academic circles. Not, you will never find this book in your university science class, astrophysics. You'll never find it because it shows, without any doubt whatsoever, by the evidence that we have from astronomy, which is a real science, that the Big Bang did not happen and could not have happened. So, as far as science is concerned, real science, which is outside of academia, academia is just fairy tales. In sciences, it's just fairy tales. There's no real science in academia. Only outside of science, you get books like this, and there's endless books like this, endless real thinkers and scientists who are saying the evidence tells us. And Halton Arp wrote a great book called Seeing Red, which is about redshift. He discovered intrinsic redshift. He's an astronomer. He discovered intrinsic redshift. And he did that by seeing two objects in the sky. They were connected by a material bridge, and they had different redshifts. And you're like, wait a minute. Academia is telling us that if they're in that place in the universe relative to us, here we are, and they're this far away from us, this many millions of light years away from us, that means that their redshift must be a certain number because they're accelerating away from us, and therefore their light is getting redder as they accelerate. So he showed that because the redshift of these two objects that are in the same place in the sky relative to us are radically different redshifts. So he showed that these two, by looking at these two objects that were connected by a material bridge, he showed that there's such a thing as intrinsic redshift, because one of them had a high redshift, one had a low redshift. And for that, he was excommunicated, he was denied telescope time, and he lost all his funding, and he was done. Academia just said, fuck off. You just found evidence that falsifies the Big Bang. Fuck off. So that's what they do to scientists who find real evidence. That's what academia does. They want their fairy tale. There's no evidence coming in. Evidence is not allowed in academia, period. People go, oh, that's a bold claim. Fuck you, it's a bold claim. It's true. Look at the sciences. They're not dealing in evidence. The evidence is outside of academia in really good books by really good men who get excommunicated and ridiculed. So the best men and the best women who are scientists are ridiculed, ostracized, marginalized. The ones who toe the line and play the games of the academic circus, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, Brian Cox, they're clowns that work for this weird fairy tale about the Big Bang. A 6-year-old who's well informed, let's say there's a 6-year-old girl who knows a lot, who's read all these books. Any 6-year-old could understand this if they're smart, you know. They could out debate, they could win an argument, a public argument on the Big Bang, debunking the Big Bang easily with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox and Michio Kaku, all three of them at once, trying to show that the Big Bang is real. This 6-year-old girl could show that they're full of bullshit because she has all the evidence. They have no evidence whatsoever. They just have this idea and this notion, and well, people have said that's all they have. So anybody can now debate these three fools, okay? Now, I'm not saying that they're not smart. I'm saying they're fools. They have been fooled. I'm not saying that they know that the Big Bang is nonsense and that they're lying to us. I'm saying that they have been fooled, and they're just taking on faith, like a religion, that the Big Bang is real because everybody's saying the Big Bang is real. That's the dominant paradigm. Well, it isn't the dominant paradigm, really, if you look at all the scientists who are like, fuck off with your Big Bang. Halton Arp, he was a real scientist. And he wrote a book saying not only what is intrinsic redshift real, which totally falsifies the Big Bang, because we see the stars have different intrinsic redshifts, not from acceleration away from us. There's no expanding universe if we look at the evidence. There's a static universe that's changing. Suns are being born, suns are dying. You know, planets are colliding, whatever. It's changing, but it's static in its volume. It's not expanding away. Uh, things are not expanding out. Space itself is not expanding. Academia tells us that space is expanding. Fuck
Yeah,
you,
yeah, I was
space is
about to say.
expanding.
I
What?
was about to say the thing I've been hearing all the time is space is expanding. What does that mean? Space is expanding. That's the first question I get. Expanding where? From where is it expanding?
Exactly. And Wallace Thornhill, the late Wallace Thornhill, he just died recently. But he and the Electric Universe scientists, and they have Thunderbolts Project channel on YouTube. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. The Electric Universe guys, they're saying, look, you can't say space is expanding because space is conceptual. You can't. It's like saying this mathematical grid that doesn't exist in reality is expanding, but it's like, but that's just a grid that you came up with in your mind. That's just a bunch of math. Space is curving. Well, that's not. No, you can't say that because you don't believe that space is something that's real. You just think it's a mathematical concept. And this, it all goes back to Einstein and his mathematical ether-like field, And it's like, oh God. So Wallace Thornhill continually talks about how, and I got his book too, right here, and he talks about the Big Bang, Electric Universe, Wallace Thornhill and David Talbot. And they talk about the Big Bang in that book, The Electric Universe, and they just show it's total nonsense. And it's all about math for academia. It's not about reality. And Wallace says, let's live in reality. Let's have terms that talk about real things. What a concept. Academia is like, no, let's have terms like virtual particles. Fuck you. I've never used the word fuck so much in it. I'm just tired of this nonsense. I've been doing these interviews for a long time. This is probably interview 35 on ancient history. I mean, a lot of people have done hundreds of interviews, so maybe that's not a lot. But to me, 35 interviews is a lot, especially because I'm a playwright. I should be writing plays. Why do people have to come to me to find this shit out? Well, it's because academia won't tell you about Halton Arp. They'll just say he was a kook. You have to find this book on your own. You have to do some digging, and then you have to buy the book, and then you have to read the book, and then you have to figure out what the hell he was talking about, and then you have to go, maybe I should tell somebody about this. So it's like a hard road to find somebody who even reads these books,
So like a person that's listening to this now, to help him a bit now, could you like say a question that you need to tell yourself to start understanding like the playing field, and a way that in your eyes is the correct, it's difficult to say that one way is correct, but a way to look at it that's maybe not as conventional as they have been taught?
That's a great question. Now let me take a quick bathroom break, and if we were gods, we wouldn't have to take a bathroom break, but we're just human beings,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first, let me say that I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this podcast in English. I guess this is your first English podcast.
Yeah, my second. I was playing a bit with a friend to see how we could talk, but I think my intention with this is to further my curiosity. It's not to get views. That's maybe a consequence. And I say I can't talk English. I'm not the best, and I excuse my English for those who don't understand it perfectly. But if I have the possibility, people like you, I could talk and learn. Why not? Why should I just do it in Spanish? It doesn't make sense. If my core interest is understanding, learning, I it should adapt to the different languages I know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I wonder, I guess more people speak English than Spanish, but then again, maybe more people speak Spanish than English. It's hard to know. I mean, we just have to make the choice, to speak in one language or the other. It'd be nice if we could speak in all of them at once, but and obviously we can have the translation come out automatically. People can choose to do that, and that's fine if they need to translate it. I would love to speak in Spanish. I spent 3 years in Ecuador when I was a
Yeah.
kid. So I learned Spanish as a kid, but then I forgot it when I came back to the States. I was 6 years old when I came back, and then we didn't speak it for the rest of my life. So I kind of forgot most of my Spanish, but muy español es muy básico.
Pero suficiente para entenderlo. Sí, bien.
But I love the sound of Spanish. It's beautiful. I love Spanish.
It's such a wide because also Spanish, you can see where he's from. Almost the whole South America speaks their own version of Spanish. And then you go to mainland Spain, and
Mm-hmm.
then they talk away.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm from Canary Islands, so we have like the mix because in the conquest years, like the Catholic kings in Spain, when they went through Columbus to America and all that period, the port in between was in Canary. So that was everything had to go through there. So when I talk like culturally with people, I like I'm aligned more with South Americans than mainland Spain. So that's fun. And even in the language. Also in Canary, like the 70s, the 60s, 1960, 1970, there were a lot of migration to Venezuela and earlier to Cuba. So we have a big connection with South America. And this you can see it through language. I mean, if you go more back, it's the language barrier. But it's so interesting through one language because in the end it's Spanish, but so different cultures, so different things that at the end connects. So it's really fun.
Right, right, right. I kind of wonder how many millions of people speak Spanish because I mean, I should just ask chat really quick.
Yeah, why not?
How many people? Because I already asked it how to say my Spanish is very basic, and it told me because I didn't even know how to say that. How many people speak Spanish? 500 million people as a first language, 580 to 600 million people total. 20 It's the second most spoken native language after Mandarin Chinese.
Wow.
It's an official language in 21 countries.
Wow.
So English isn't even the first two, it's somewhere down the list. So, but that's pretty cool. That's cool. Spanish, I don't know. Maybe Spanish should be our official language instead of English. The official business language.
It'd be easier for me, definitely. No, but it's curious. The Spanish history too. I mean, I have talking about books. I have one book now. What I don't know if we should go into that, but what America owes Spain, because now everything is like genocide and everything went there and we destroyed everything. But that's not like that's the academia view. It's broader. Nobody were there that's still living today. We have just documents. We have to like make our own image of what happened there. But that's like the political stuff. I try to stay like in between. I don't like going so deep into it because it's so ideological at the end.
Yeah.
But what I find very interesting is like the conquistadors' tales.
Hmm.
Example one I really like is Francisco Orellana. I don't know if you've heard of him. He went down the Amazon River, and this was like in the beginning when Hernan Cortés was like still managing down South America. But he documents, he went, I think, with his cousin or some family member that was like the main captain of that trip. And they went down the Amazon River and they documented seeing like women warriors and like
Mm.
all this kind of stuff that years later, when the English started to go inside there and investigate, there was nothing left.
Hmm.
Maybe that can, to connect what we were talking about earlier, the evidence of things, how like manipulated maybe that could be just because it doesn't suit the main like stereotype of what that is, or the interest in what that is. It's not a curiosity, adventurous based. It's more like I have this opinion and I have to defend it, and this is my identity. And if you come with another view, that's dangerous for me. It's not that flexible. And I think that we can talk through that lens about different themes we were talking about. So that's just an example I find interesting why how he like as you were in Bosnia looking at things for the first time, I can't imagine what he was thinking about. I have the luck to talk with you about how you felt that time, but imagine going down the Amazon River and just looking at things. That's like so my head goes to another space when I begin talking about. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think we need more independent exploration of the world, more real scientists. And you don't have to just go out onto the terrain. You can also go into the laboratory and look at a cell in your microscope and not be funded by certain groups that are going to tell you how to word your paper. In other words, instead of controlled science, we need truly independent scientists just telling us what they found. Because all of science is a story. Every single scientific fact we have is a story told by a scientist who said, I looked in my telescope and this is what I found. I looked in my microscope and this is what I found. I went out into the field on the Serengeti and this is what I saw. Here's a photo of what I saw. Here's my story about that. Everything's a story, everything's a testimonial. So we need better stories. We need independent stories that aren't controlled. That's what a good story is someone telling their real story instead of telling someone else's story about what happened. I saw this. That's all we need. I saw this in the laboratory. I saw this on the terrain. I saw this in in my telescope. Halt and Arp. I saw this. That's all we need. Instead of the controlled paradigm coming down and saying, we're not going to allow you to say that you saw that. We're not going to allow that narrative. Wait, what? What do you mean you're not going to allow it? People can choose. The global mind can choose what they want to believe from all the stories the scientists tell. It's really simple. And it's really fair. So you're talking about going down the Amazon. The Amazonian women probably learned a lesson and said, you know what, let's then when the English come, let's not show ourselves to them. Some bad things might happen if they know we're here. We don't want to be invaded. We don't want to talk to them. Why would we? We got our own thing going. We got a good thing going. So they probably just said, we're going to step back. And that might be what the giants did too. The giants who survived through time up until even today probably said, we're outnumbered here. We're bigger than they are, but the humans can kill us. They got technology that we don't have. So they're staying back in the background. We have evidence of giants all throughout history. We got the giant footprints. We have petrified giant humans, all huge, all across the earth. And I've written an article about that called what's it called? Goddess Walked the Earth. And it's all about megalithic remains, women who turned into stone, who were giant women, and we still have their remains. And we can see that it's obviously a person turned into stone, and it's a female and it's a human. And it's like, 20 times bigger than we are, or 10 times bigger than we are. And it's like academia just says, no, we're not going to look at that. No, that's not going to be in our anthropology. That's not going to be in our paleontology. Fuck off. We don't want evidence. That's academia. That literally is academia. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way. I wish academia was this vibrant place where there was conversation. There's no conversation in academia. It's bankers telling you what to think because they funded certain textbooks that their professors are promoting. That's it.
Yeah, man, if you follow like that famous phrase, follow the money. I think more is like this is very complicated issue, of course, but when you see things that's not that wanted to make a bad or make harm, but I just want my money, it makes more sense for me at least. But the thing with the Giants, I wanted to ask you about this because in the Graham Hancock series, like because he goes to the root of the beginnings and stuff, and when they get to what the locals or the origin people were there had like had to explain what was how the pyramids or the places they've seen these old structures, the way they explained it was always either it was a big flood or there were giants or there were a big wave, and always there were giants. In Mexico, the seven giants that build one of the temples. It's always giants. That's very curious that because they have not written, but if you see, as you say, the stones and the tales and it's really interesting how they coin it's like different parts of the world, but they all say giants. That's so curious, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and you know Tyler Koala, who's the co-host of Journey to Truth podcast, he said something really smart. He said, "Mythology is the real history." So academia tells us that mythology is just people making up stories that were just invented for some reason. We don't know why they would invent all these stories, but they just did invent them, and they based their entire lives on them, even though they're just fiction. And it's like, oh, the people must be really primitive and stupid to just invent stories that ruled their entire lives, and their whole worldview was based on giants and gods, you know, high tech gods, uh, who are warring with each other. That seems to be history and mythology. But academia is like, no, we're not going to look at that. So myth is basically equated with the word lie, story. We don't have to worry about stories. That's just primitive people making stuff up. But pretty clearly, mythology becomes the real history when you do the research. And we find, I mean, if I were someone who saw a giant, I'd write it down. I'd make sure it was written in stone because this is cool. This is amazing. And some of the giants were working with humans over time, and different species of giants were doing different things. Some giants were eating us. The red-haired giants, I think there's probably two strains of giants that were red hair, and one had the 4 rows of teeth, and they were monsters. To us, they were monsters. They're cannibals. They're eating us. They were big enough to just bite our heads off and just drink our blood from our bodies. And how terrifying would that be if you saw that? And you'd record that in stone if you could. You'd record that as a warning to your future generations of your tribe. You know, stay away from that area. There's giants there. They're going to eat you. Let's try to kill the giants today. Let's get together and try to kill them. And that's what the Native Americans did in the case of the red-haired giants. They were living in Lovelock Cave. I think it's Lovelock, Arizona, or Lovelock, Utah. I can't remember. And so that in this cave, you even have the handprint of this giant that's in the soot, because what they did was they built a fire on a new moon where there's no moon. The humans crept up to the entrance of the giant's cave, and they built this fire very quietly. They set it up. They set it on fire, and they burned. They basically killed the giants with smoke inhalation, I think. And the giants were trying to get out, and there's this handprint in the soot still. It's huge handprint.
Mm.
Academia has nothing to say about that. They're like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. If you pay us tuition, that's not going to be in your curriculum. So they just say no to giants, even though there's evidence of giants, even though we have footprints of huge giants. I mean, massive giants, 100 feet tall. If you look at the size of their footprint, we have a footprint in Indonesia, and I'll send you that picture. Uh, I'll send you, or I could screen share. Let's see, share screen, share entire screen, share entire screen. Okay, let's see if I can go grab this picture. I'll just show you this Indonesia. It's massive. Here's the picture. Can you see?
Wow.
Can you see that?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
so the guy is like, let's say the guy's 5 feet tall, 5 feet two.
Yeah.
He's not even close to being half as long as that foot is.
That's crazy.
It's wild. That's
Yeah.
that's West Java, Indonesia, for anybody who wants to know. And I've got some correspondence from a guy in Indonesia who can tell us exactly where it is. So if anybody wants to write me, jock dot terra at protonmail.com, I can send
I'll
that.
leave it in the link for sure. I'll leave it in the link.
Okay, yeah. So uh and then I'll stop sharing, I guess. Oops.
Also, my head went when we were talking about this giants eating. You know Francisco Goya?
Yeah. The painter.
He has like this famous, I will send it to you so you can see it. This famous what is it, artwork where you can see a giant eating up a human. So that's
Yeah.
interesting how the art gets through it too. But like for someone that's first, because they are first time hearing giants, are you kidding me? What do you mean by there were giants here? Because there are a lot of listening now that's thinking about that. How can you like introduce someone like that to these ideas that there were giants? Like my first question, if I haven't been seeing this type of information before, would be what do you mean giants? Where did giants come from?
Well, giants are just one window into a history of our planet that is completely suppressed and unknown to us. So it's like once people realize that there were giants, or once people realize that there were sophisticated builders of pyramidal structures, then they start to go, oh, I wonder what else I didn't know about. What else hasn't been being told to me by academia? So giants are just literally just uh, one suppressed category of information that academia completely just says, no, we're not talking about that. So if people want to know if giants existed, all they have to do is go to the land. The land has the stone remnants, the fossilized remnants of giants. There's giant humans all over the place. So you can see them. There's many giant human figures along valleys, and the giant human figure will be looking out over a vista. So it's very strange. Like I have no explanation for this. Why is there a stone person who's 10 or 20 times bigger than a normal human looking out over a vista? It's like part of the hill, and it's looking straight across a valley, and it's always the same. It's not like the person is fallen in some kind of flood or something and is petrified there. No, the person is standing up totally calm and looking straight up, not down, not up, not over here, straight over like this. And you're like, what is this? Why do we have stone giants looking out over vistas and valleys? They're not looking toward the hill. They're not looking, up above the hill. They're looking at the valley. What is that? So there's tons of evidence. And if people want to go to my article, Goddess Walked the Earth, they can just, in quotes, Goddess Walked the Earth. They can find endless photos of physically stone, physical stone females that were 10 times bigger than us, 20 times bigger. And you see the anatomy, it's all there. You see hands, you see other anatomy of the female figure, and there's nothing more clear than that. So people can see giants in the terrain. They don't even have to read some history book. They don't even have to read the Bible, which also has giants in it. They can just go out onto the land. That's cool because anyone can see this if they want to visit these sites.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with seeing things that you can like create your own image through that. Like, what happened here? That's so like important, I think. Seeing things, like feeling them. If you're able to be there, I can't imagine how that would feel. But could we? Because I think we're talking about it already, but into your future book, because there are so much interesting stuff that I want to ask you about. This, like for example, this we're talking about giants. Would that be one of the master architects you talk about? Or this a
Well,
different thing?
that's a good question. Many people believe that giants did build pyramids along with us. Like there are teams of people building pyramids, some giants, some normal humans. Uh, I think that let's start with two categories of ancient people.
Yeah.
The what we call the ancients right now, the pyramid builders, that's one category, and that's fine. What I call the true ancients would be another category. And the true ancients built the continents and the planet, and they weren't humans because we're from this earth. However, we got here, we're Terrans. They were not Terrans because Terra wasn't around. They built Terra and they shaped the continental features. So they were beings that might not even have physical form, or they could have a physical form, but they would choose to have a specific form, whatever they wanted, because they're high enough, they're advanced enough to be able to choose a physical form. I have a feeling that there were consciousnesses in the ether that got together with other consciousnesses and said, let's make an ether transformer. Let's make a
Mm.
hollow sphere. We'll use crystalline material in the shell. We'll have a large resonant cavity for the ether to resonate, to become structured in. And the ether will create the planet in real time using an ether vortex. So the ether vortex, like an eddy in a stream, right? It's it's a temporary eddy, it's a temporary spiral, a vortex in a stream, but it could last for a long time. It's not forever. It's not matter per se, but this vortex in the stream, this pattern can last for a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years. You don't know how long that little vortex is going to last. Well, Terra's vortex is the same. The ether vortex that creates Terra in real time, which might be just a natural ether vortex that the advanced races who built us, who built our planet, took advantage of and said, okay, now we're going to decide how this ether vortex is going to actually flourish, how how large the torus is going to be, how large the planet's going to be, what material the potential ether is going to manifest into, the crystalline shell, the hollow space. That might have all been engineered by advanced beings who took advantage of an already existing ether vortex, moving counterclockwise into the North Pole, the hole in the planet, which academia denies there's a hole in the North Pole. It denies there's a hole in the South Pole because it doesn't want us to know anything about our planet that's real. So we have a hollow planet. We have
Explain
holes.
that concept. Yeah, explain what you mean with the Earth had holes. Please
Well,
explain.
the 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 planet builders, the engineers of our planet, the consciousnesses who created our planet, and it's all in my book, Artifact Terra, which is coming out in about a year. They wanted to create an ether transformer And to do that, you can't create a solid planet. A solid planet cannot transform ether. You need a resonant cavity, just like a mandolin has a resonance, a violin has a resonant cavity for the sound to resonate in and amplify. And that's exactly what the ether is doing when it enters the North Pole of our planet and then resonates inside the planet and then moves out in this torus field. And it's always moving, always moving, always moving, resonating, resonating, resonating. And then out the South Pole. So we have these holes in the north and the south. And Admiral Byrd went into the north, did he go in the South Pole, I think? Because he was exploring Antarctica. So I think he went into the South Pole. I can't remember. But so many adventurers have been into the Hollow Earth and they've come back with stories. So there's the one called the Smoky God. Then there's Admiral Byrd. And there are many people who've done this, and they're all either silenced. Admiral Byrd was silenced by the powers that be. They said you can't speak about this, but he did speak about it in a cryptic way, in a sort of a secret way. He told us. He said he went to the land beyond the poles, and you're like, the land beyond the poles? There is no land beyond the poles. What land are you talking about? The poles, that's the end. The pole is the beyond the poles. Well, if you go inside, there is a land beyond the poles.
Would this be like a plan in your chapter 3 that the molten core is this what you're talking about there, or is this a different thing?
Right. So academia is telling us there's a molten core. They just made that up.
Hmm.
They just think there's a molten core. They've never seen the molten core. They've never dug down and found a molten core. We have lava coming out of molten areas in the shell, but the shell is relatively thin compared to the hollow cavity inside. So the molten material is inside the shell. Gravity is inside the shell. So if you go inside the earth, gravity is holding you to the shell no matter where you are. So it always seems like you're walking right side up because gravity, no matter where you are inside, you're always walking right side up. In other words, this person's head is here, his foot's here, the shell is here. He's inside the planet. His feet are on the shell, and what we would think it was, he's all virtually upside down. But to him, the gravity is in the shell. So to him, it's like this.
Yeah.
He's just walking. And they got rivers and oceans, and they have a way to make sun. They have a way to make sunlight. They can do it out of sound. And there's an SSP insider, Secret Space Program insider, who talked about going down there and talking to I think the Anshar. I think that's who it was. Yeah, the Anshar, who are us from the future, who came back, and they came back to Terra and live inside Terra to make sure they guard the optimal timeline. So they have these technological chairs that they sit in, and they can work with different families to guide their thoughts a little bit to make sure that their optimal timeline, where they become an advanced race and everything's good in the future, they still exist. So they're guarding the timeline because Terra is very volatile. So this SSP insider went in, talked to the Anshar, and they told him, they said, we make light out of sound. So there's a connection between light and sound. In fact, Nikola Tesla said that light can be nothing else than sound in the ether. So a light can be nothing else than a sound wave in the ether. So he's saying, we need a resonant medium for light. Resonance, so there has to be a medium because sound travels through a medium. He's saying light is sound. So Tesla said light is sound, and the Anshar are telling us that they're making light out of sound inside the earth. So they can make a sun, basically. They can make a bunch of small suns for their produce, whatever they want to do with sound. So they learn how
I
to
want to understand this generally. What does he mean, like light is sound? What does that mean?
because Tesla was saying when Tesla said that light can be nothing else than a sound wave in the ether, that's an exact quote. He meant that light needs a medium. In other words, we know that sound needs a medium because sound goes through air. Without air, you can't have sound. There's no sound in space because there's no air in space. But light doesn't need air. It needs a medium, doesn't need air as a medium. It can use the ether as a medium. So does light travel through the ether? Well, it doesn't really need to propagate through the ether like this. It can propagate through the ether instantaneously through resonance. Like a tuning fork over here, boom, sets off this tuning fork over here if it's the same structure. If the tuning
Like
fork
in
is
a
the same,
quantum way.
it's instant. It's instant resonance. So it's the same thing in the ether. The sun can instantly resonate its photons here on Earth because the ether is a resonant medium. And the ether is a non-local in time and non-local in space. If the ether was local in time, then the photon would have to travel through the ether 8 or 9 minutes to get to the Earth, but it doesn't have to because the ether is non-local in time. So it's essentially magic. It's fantastic. So Nikola Tesla said, light can be nothing else than a sound wave in the ether because he knew that there had to be a medium for light. And that's what all the great scientists of the past knew. All the scientists that he ever studied knew that there was an ether. It's only recently that they got rid of the, halfway through Nikola Tesla's life, academia said, fuck the ether. We have to discard this because it's the key to everything. So let's discard this. So the controllers said, we don't want the slaves to know anything about their universe. We want them in the matrix breeding and making us some money. We just skim the money from all their life energy, their wages. We just skim it. And so we need them to breed and we need them to stay in our slave matrix. If they know about the ether, they're not gonna stay in the slave matrix. They're gonna go to the stars and search for their galactic family. So they told us we live in a young universe, 13.8 billion years with the Big Bang that made everything all at once. Wait, that's insane. So that's nonsense. But because of the young universe, people believe that we can plausibly imagine that we're the first advanced race in a young universe, right? It's only been 13.8 billion years. So we might be the first race to achieve self-consciousness, self-awareness, high technology. We might be the first ones in the whole universe. We might be the first. We might be the best. We're awesome. But if we're the first and the best, we're alone. That's what the young universe gives us. It gives us a universe in which we're plausibly the first and only advanced, truly conscious race. That means that if we're alone, there's no reason to leave the matrix. There's nobody out there. It's just space and it's cold and it's lonely. Why would you leave? We stay here on Earth. Stay here in our banker's matrix. Everything's fine. You're alone in the universe. Why would you go to Mars? It's a dead planet. Fuck that. There's no galactic family out there. You don't live in a universe of infinite time that has endless teeming advanced races, some of whom engineered you. So you're the genes of whom you have in your body. You don't have that. You don't have to go search for your forefathers and foremothers, your ancestors. Stay here in the slave matrix. Go to work. Make some money. That's what you want. So the young universe, the Big Bang nonsense, keeps us as slaves in the matrix. That's why they promote it. That's the only reason they promote the Big Bang. If a scientist believes in the Big Bang, he'll be promoted. He'll get airtime. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, Michio Kaku. That's all you see all day long. Why these scientists? Because they believe in the Big Bang. If they didn't believe in the Big Bang, you would not know their fucking names. You would never see them. The scientists who don't believe in the Big Bang, all these guys, they are not promoted. No, you will never see them anywhere in the media. They are dead. They're gone. They are invisible. Why? Because they know that we have an infinite universe, a universe of infinite time in which advanced races obviously exist, since we just came into being recently. So, of course, in a universe of infinite time, we're the last advanced race. We're not even the first, and we're not that advanced. We think we're advanced, but compared to the races that have already been here for millions of years, they had billions of years to advance technologically. We're just babies. We're just coming up with how to make a laser. They're way beyond lasers. The advanced races don't need our technology. They use consciousness. They can create a planet through consciousness because everything is resonance. We use tools because we don't understand how to use our consciousness to create anything.
That's really interesting. I've been like, not exactly like this, but I've been thinking about it. For example, if there is that, it's more probable that it is than it isn't. It doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense that it isn't. But if there are advanced, so like advanced technology, advanced people out there, if it's even strange to call them something. It's something more advanced than us outside. Why would they like have interest in us in the way that maybe we to like scale it? Maybe we for them are like dust, like sand for us. So in that way I can understand it. But it's so interesting the way you like wrap around this through our consciousness. What does that mean?
Well, first, the, there are approximately 22 advanced races who did give us their genes. In other words, they found the story is this. I'm just going to wrap it up in a bow for people who are new to this.
Please.
From what I know, and you might hear different stories from different people, slightly different, but from what I understand, and I've talked to reputable people about this, the Alpha Draconans found a little monkey on our planet. They took this monkey to Mars and they upgraded it. They then say that they created human beings. Well, they didn't create human beings. They created an upgrade version of this monkey. Then they brought it back to the Earth. Now, we also have the Aldebarans who have a similar story about finding a primate. So I have a feeling that the Draconians, the Alpha Draconans, upgraded this monkey, this tiny little monkey, and gave it some extra genes that would make it smarter. Then the Aldebarans came, they found this upgraded monkey. They took this monkey on their spaceships and they took thousands of them to work with genetically, and they upgraded it and they brought it back. And then they said, you know what? These humans that we created out of this monkey, they're not that good. Let's just destroy them. So they killed them all, and they didn't kill them all. They killed most of them. They took some of them and they on their ship again. They took them away. They upgraded them and they brought them back, and they did that 6 times. So there were actually 7 races. So this is recorded by this is told to us by Lacerta, who is a reptilian being who has some mammalian traits because her reptilian race, who lives underground in the shell in Terra right now, they watched the Aldebaran race come and do this. They watched through millions of years. They'd been here for millions of years, way before we were. So they watched our creation. They watched the Aldebarans bring back the new prototypes of humanity over and over and over again. Then after 7 tries, finally the Aldebarans were satisfied. And the Aldebarans, by the way, are using their own genes to help us upgrade. And the Aldebarans were not, they didn't like the brightness of our sun. So it was hard for them to be on the surface. The sun was too bright for them. So we have some of their genes. It's hard for us to handle the sun because we have some Aldebaran genes that make us, susceptible to sunburn. And it's like, why are we on this planet? Ouch. So we got some Aldebaran genes. Then 20 or so other advanced races come and find us and they go, hey, let's upgrade these guys. We'll give them some of our genes. So all these different star nations find us and they're upgrading us. They want to see what happens. Let's upgrade it because we're too primitive as primitive primates for them to be really interested in. But if we upgrade this primitive primate, then we can have a conversation, right? It's like when you have a baby. When they're 1 year old, there's not much of a conversation going on.
Right.
You're excited for them to start to pick up language, and you can learn who they are, and you can have a great conversation. So if we have 22 advanced races genes in us, then those races are going to want to see what our progress is. They're going to monitor us, and they might not want to talk to us quite yet because we're still killing each other. We're still barbaric in so many ways, but they're hoping that we're going to advance, and they're going to send some star seeds like Jesus to come inhabit a human body, give you a good message saying, don't stop killing each other, basically. And then, hopefully upgrade humanity so that we're worthy and interesting enough to talk to. Because who wants to talk to a barbarian who just wants to go kill the tribe next to him because they're different? That's not fun. That's not a fun conversation, you know?
So you think in some way that gene they gave us took us through the survival mode and got us thinking about something else than just like surviving. I need food. I need like the biologically needs are like flesh there, the dualism, a lot of things a lot of people talk about that try to escape our only like material needs and start asking ourselves questions that maybe I don't know what through what to what science do you think you said astronomy was one of the only real sciences is where should like where do you see the path to knowing or having that information to talk with this kind of people where's the path.
This is really, it's a clear answer because what we need to do is bring the ether back, because then that gives a foundation to all the natural sciences, all the physical sciences that is now missing. So once we have the ether, then we can have a conversation that makes sense among us. We can understand the universe. We can talk about the universe in terms of ether physics, and that's what my book does. So it starts out in 5 chapters, 6 chapters, 7 chapters. It talks about the building of the planet, but then and the evidence for that, the physical evidence for that I found in the field research on the continents. And then it goes for many more chapters than that, talking about ether physics. It's all about the ether. I didn't know it was going to be about the ether, but that's where my research led me. The ether makes everything clear in all the sciences, in all the physical, natural sciences. The ether is the key to all of it. So then advanced races, once we bring the ether back to our scientific conversation, then advanced races can go, oh, they're not stupid anymore. and they stop warring. Hopefully. Let's go talk to them.
Let's stop worrying. Yeah, I mean, it's like so primal things we're doing here. It's like it doesn't make sense. Why can we have that as such an obvious thing? But still, if you just, I mean, it's nothing weird you have to do. Just turn on the TV, and there's always these groups that's at the end, a small group demanding a big group to do what they think. What's going on here? Is it a human instinct we still battling? Why are we so focused on this, like, seems in my eyes, short-term thing?
Well, we still have the original reptilian brain because we primates, or the primates, if we want to use the correct pronunciation, it's really primates. This group have a relationship to the reptilians, the reptiles in our biosphere, right? So, and that reptilian brain is still telling us about, it's giving us the survival signals all the time. And it's saying, it's identifying threats. And it's saying that person could be a threat because they're not like us. They're not part of our tribe. So watch out for them. They're not part of our tribe. That's the reptile brain going, okay. And it's like, okay, but we have more brain tissue that's doing other things, saying, you know what, even though my reptile brain is telling me that that person could be a threat, I'm going to override that and say, I don't see them with a gun pointed at my head, so maybe I should have a conversation. So we're talking to ourselves in our heads, different parts of our brain, reptilian versus mammalian, and we're able to override it most of the time. What the small groups do, the bankers, let's just call them the bankers. I don't want to use names right now. They say we're going to incite division, and we're going to do that through the media and that we own, and we're going to incite people to get angry, and we're going to say, let's get that reptile brain fired up. Let's get that reptile brain thinking that they're coming at you with a gun, even though they aren't really. And let's tell these people over here that this group is coming at them with the gun. And we just get them fighting with each other, get them angry. And that's what these bankers do. And they do that for a specific reason, many specific reasons. The two main reasons are that they want to create something called loosh. Have you heard of loosh?
No.
Loosh, Loosh. It's a term that we use in the SSP community, the Secret Space Program Insiders community. I'm not a Secret Space Program insider, but I'm kind of in the community as someone who interviews them and talks to them and learns from them. So in this community, loosh is the negative energy, fear, hate, anger, sadness, depression, all these things give a vibration, a resonance through the resonant ether when we're in these angry states or these sad states that can be food for certain organisms. Those organisms are archons and reptilians primarily. So the Alpha Draconans feed off of our pain. They park their ships, which are cloaked ships, over our battlefields when we have battles, like in the Civil War. Any kind of battle where there's pain, misery, anger, hatred, they park their ships over them and just eat that energy. And archons do the same thing. And I just did an episode on archons on my podcast, Transition to New Terra, where we have a conversation with actual archons. They're in the fourth dimension normally, but they can come in and affect us. And in our sleep state, we're most vulnerable. So during the night, most people they're having archons turn their dreams into anxiety dreams. And then the archons feed off of the anxiety. They love that. It's like eating icing on a cake. So this all sounds crazy, but I'm just laying it out and people can dismiss it or research it if they want. There's lots of intel out there. My podcast, Transition to New Terra. There's also Journey to Truth podcast with Tyler and Aaron. Fantastic. And your podcast is obviously getting out there into the non-normal subjects. Fantastic. So that's one way. That's one sort of model to look at why the bankers are creating wars, because the bankers made a deal with the Draco. The Draco said, we're going to make you wealthy and powerful if you do what we want, which is to create war between humans. And the banker said, okay, awesome. We can be at the top of the heap if all we do is create war through the media. Awesome, we can do that. So that's what they do. And then also, since they're doing that anyway, they go, hey, we can make even more money by funding both sides of the war. Or if there's 3 sides or 5 sides of the war, even better, we'll fund all the nations. We'll loan them money for their wars. Then they won't be able to pay it back, because how would they? And then we're going to take land and mineral rights in exchange for the war debt, the money debt. So we'll force the nations to give us their rights, their water, their minerals, their infrastructure. We'll just own physical things because we loan them this fictional money that we printed out of thin air. So that's the banker scam, and they work for the Draco. That's what's happening. Now, some of the bankers don't know they work for the Draco. Only the top level bankers know that an ET race is basically controlling societies and how humans deal with each other on a day-to-day basis.
Jock, to wrap this up, I like to ask this question because I always get a different answer. It's a very, very philosophical question, but in this context, I think it's going to be interesting. Jock, what's the meaning of life inside of this context? What's the meaning of life? I'm people that's just around this world, just living their life. What's the meaning in your eyes?
Well, we could go back to Alan Watts, who wrote,
Love,
Alan
love,
Watts?
yeah, love Alan Watts.
Oh, you love Alan Watts.
That's
Awesome. Do you listen to his audio tapes?
yeah, man.
Ooh,
It's
good.
been a while since I've heard it now, but it like hit me just in a perfect moment. I don't know why. And it was like very relaxing. The best answer I can give is it was very relaxing, gave me a bit of peace.
Right. Well, Alan Watts promotes the Eastern wisdom in Western society. So he basically single-handedly, well, he and Gary Snyder and some other people brought Eastern wisdom to the West. But he's written many books and he gave many, many talks, and he's extremely knowledgeable. And I actually was fortunate enough to talk to him a couple of years ago. He's not on Earth as a living human anymore, but his soul is still, his etheric vortex pattern, his soul still exists in a non-local way. It's not in a place in space. It's just in the resonant ether, just like all immortal souls are. All souls are immortal. So we don't have to worry about death because this is just one aspect. This is just one incarnation of an immortal soul. So his immortal soul is still available. I was talking with Vanessa Wittergren, who is a medium, and I said, hey, I wonder if Alan Watts is around. Can you say hi to him for me and maybe we can have a conversation? She goes, okay, who's Alan Watts? She didn't know who Alan Watts was. She started talking, but he immediately appeared for her, not for me. I mean, because I don't know how to do it. She knows how to do it. So he started talking to her and she started laughing because she goes, oh, he has this accent. It's kind of like had a hard time describing the accent, and like an Atlantic accent here in America, where people are sort of talking like the English in this formal way, but it's not really an English accent. But anyway, and of course, Alan Watts has an English accent. That's where he was raised, and so but then he came to America for many years. So anyway, she was like, he's talking with an accent, and I was like, yeah. And we had a conversation with Alan Watts for a while, and he's doing well. He's happy. Who wouldn't be? It's only here where there's trauma. I mean, it's planet trauma right here. It's no matter who you are, you've got some trauma because this 3D is going to be trauma, period. For humans, for animals, insects, insects are getting eaten alive. Spiders are eating flies alive. It's all trauma. Birds are eating spiders. It's like, holy shit, this is horrible. I'm going to die. I'm getting old. I'm getting wrinkles. People don't love me anymore. It's all trauma. It's just trauma. My parents hit me. My parents yelled at me. It's trauma, trauma, trauma. You don't have any of that where he is. In the ether, he's just a pattern that's hanging out. And it's all good. So it was fun to talk to him. It wasn't a lengthy conversation, but I was just glad. I was like, tell him I say hi and thanks for everything. And, it was like, that's awesome. But anyway, so Alan Watts, he is talking about the feminine nature of nature. He's saying that the nature is flowing. And we want to, in the West, try to control nature, and we want to dominate nature. And it's like, you can't really dominate nature because we are nature. So if we try to dominate nature, we're trying to throw a brick at the window of ourselves. Basically, we're like, what are we doing? What we need to do is do what the Taoist sages did, which was to flow with nature, right? To relax, not to tighten up and go, I'm going to cut down this forest to build a whatever. We're going to go with it. We're going to say, how can we and the trees work together? That's why I have a tree in the background, because the tree knows what it's doing. It's it's got its own consciousness. It's growing without itself telling itself to grow. It doesn't have, we're telling ourselves to improve and do all these things. Alan says we can't improve. We can't improve ourselves. What we have to do is to relax into ourselves like a tree is relaxed into itself. It's not trying to be anything other than it is. It's not trying to improve itself. It's just growing and it's having a good time. So relax. Just take a deep breath. And while you're doing that, maybe try meditating. And meditating is not forcing yourself to stop thinking. It's just listening. The tree's listening to everything. Just relax and listen. What is the sound you're hearing? Just let it be a sound. Don't let it be a word. Don't let it be a horn from a car. Just let it be a sound. Relax. And so this is Alan Watts trying to chill out this insane frenetic culture we have in the West, where it's like, we got to build some skyscrapers. Let's get up at 6 in the morning against our natural rhythm and work a job we hate and do a bunch of shit that's weird and work against nature, create some synthetic materials that aren't even natural, and build this thing, and then we'll feel good because we achieved. But once you build a skyscraper, you don't feel achievement. You don't feel good. You feel like shit. You're like, I thought that was going to make me happy. I'm not happy. Well, what would make me happy? Well, maybe relaxing into our true natural selves, which is the flow of nature, which is the flow of the ether. Once we realize that we live in a resonant universe, all we have to do is reclaim the resonance that we already are born with, that is a natural resonance, that is, when we go on a hike, we can feel, we relax because the trees are relaxing us. Why are they doing that? Why is the earth and the trees, and why are the trees relaxing us on a hike? Why do we feel better? Why do we feel peaceful? It's because the resonance of these objects that are part of the resonant world inside a resonant ether universe are giving us the frequency that they have, and we're starting to align with that frequency. I'm aligning with the frequency of the tree. It's not aligning with my frequency. It's more powerful because there's a forest. And the forest is going to create, not by forcing you, not by telling you, but just by resonating in a certain frequency, you're going to start to naturally align with that. It's just called resonance alignment. And that's a term that science needs. We need the term resonance alignment because it explains so much. It's what a 6-year-old would learn when a 6-year-old is learning ether physics, to debate these clowns, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, and Brian Cox, who thinks that there's a void out there instead of a beautiful resonant ether with which we can align. We come from the ether. We are being created in real time by the ether. The planet is being created in real time by the ether. If we try to force ourselves to be something other than we are, to achieve weird things, to achieve dominance over another part of our species, if we want to be the king of a tribe that takes control of the entire world, that becomes Caesar, then we're going to have a problem, because that ain't in alignment with resonant nature. Resonant nature is just being. It's not trying to dominate everything.
That's a beautiful answer, Jock. I'm genuinely grateful for your time here, man. It has been fun. Really, really fun.
Thank you, Samuel. I really appreciate you having me on.
I hope in the not so far future we can maybe have another conversation, maybe when you publish your book or if you're open to it, I would be much then grateful for that.
100%. I would love to have the opportunity to talk with you again and ask you some questions too.
Great, man. Perfect. Bye. See you guys.
Take care.